Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, whoa, hey, hey, hey. Listen, guys, it's Friday. We partying over here at Can I Talk with Roz. What's going on, E?
What's going on, my sister? Listen,
Hey, you know, we got to spice it up a little bit.
You know what I mean? If people can only see right now, we having a full-on party behind the scenes. Like I
Yes.
off stage right now. People can't see it, but they dancing, man. This is Women's History Month. This is our last episode for the month.
Last episode for the month.
Man. So yeah, we had some powerful women on all month long. So today won't be any different. I know how it is. Fire Fridays. We're about to bring y'all two fire females. I've had the pleasure of working with them and I just love them. So I'm excited, man. Today is Friday.
I know. So happy Women's History Month. We're the end of March. Happy to all the women out there. If you're in cannabis or not, you just a woman, you just holding it down. You just being that rock for your family, for at the job, for your business. We just say, God bless you, man, and just keep doing what you're doing. Make sure right now, share this. Stop, share. We got two ladies on. You gotta understand, they so fire, and I'm so happy to have them on the show today. So without further ado, let me bring up Miss Therese Prentice. Hey, Therese, girl.
Hey everyone. Hey everyone.
Danielle Butler. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, the party
continues. The party got started. Good Lord Almighty. So listen, guys, everybody that's out here listening to Can I Talk with Roz, we have two special guests. Hey, and I didn't have my shirt on today. I'm sorry. Listen, I call myself dressing up a little bit, but listen, happy Friday, everybody. Hey, Therese, we got people shouting you out already. Girl, look, hey, this is how we get it in. Hey. So listen, so first and foremost, Therese, introduce yourself to everybody. Tell them where you're located. Tell them what you do. And tell them why you're so daggone fantastic.
Well, hey, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. My name is Therese Prentice and an herbal lifestyle business mentor. And what that really means is that I've been doing this a long time and I help others do the same thing by mentoring and aspiring and master herbalists in a methodology that allows them to have confidence as they go through in life doing the work they're called to do.
Absolutely, man. So happy to have you. And our next guest that we have, hey, Danielle Butler, so happy to have you. Tell us who you are, where you're located, what you do, and and why you are so fantastic, my love.
Okay, so hey everybody, I'm Danielle Butler. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Super excited to be here. In terms of what I do, I am the founder of Rich Soil Communications, which is the communications agency that supports the cannabis industry. Yes, and he is repping with me today. And then I also recently accepted a role with M for MM, and I'm super stoked about that as the program director for Project Clean Slate. And what makes me fantastic is that I get to share space with other fantastic people. I believe we're stronger through collaboration. So, let's do this thing. I need like an air horn for today.
Therese, you're based where, in Tampa?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
You're in Tampa. Okay. So for everybody who does not know, explain to them what is an herbalist. What do you do? What makes it and break it down in layman's term so we understand maybe how it coordinates with our body, but what it is that you do and why it's important.
Well, first and foremost, I have a personal relationship with plants and nature, and the plant kingdom's been here long before us, so they hold all the knowledge, the past, the present, and ultimately the future. And so we integrate plants, the plant energy, the spirit of plants into our lives. When we ingest plants, we take in that DNA. That DNA becomes part of our cellular system, and that allows us to know. The plants have spirit. So when we interact with plants, we ask their permission. Can we use them? Is it the right medicine for other people? When we're making our remedies, whether it's a topical, or we're ingesting it as a tea, or we're taking it as a tincture, it's all interconnected, and it's all to support what the body already knows how to do, which is to heal thyself.
So does that mean that our body is really, are we akin more to plant and plant nature versus, I sometimes think we've gone over to the meat side or whatever, but it seems like are you saying that our bodies are attuned to this, to the plants themselves as they grow from the ground, and that it's
Absolutely.
just
I mean, we're in tune with nature. So think of nature as the hierarchy, and then we come down to the plants, and we're part of that nature plant kingdom, right? So we interact with them. We're one and the same within the ecosystem of nature. Right. So we can't live without them, but they can live without us. Right. And so we have to learn to respect the planet, respect the trees and everything else around us, because without them, we can't exist. We need the trees. We need the plants in order for us to have oxygen, in order for us to be able to breathe and function at an optimum level. And so when we ingest these plants, I'm not saying you need to be a plant-based diet, because that is not necessarily good for everyone, because through the ages we have ingested meat and it's become part of our lineage now. Sometimes that's something that we've grown accustomed to, and we need that. So it's going to be an individual situation when we think about diet, but the plants, when we ingest them, they raise our vibration, and they also nourish the body.
Wow. Now, when your entry into this, you say you've been this by nature. This has been who you are. Being able to then take something that's passionate that you believe in, but then being able to translate that over into a business. Talk about what that journey has looked like for yourself.
Well, I mean, I was called to this work. I didn't come to this work. I didn't sign up for it. I was called to it. And being that I was called to it, it has been a journey to here. Journey to now, because I ran like a bat out of hell and nobody was chasing me, right? And so I didn't want to do this work. So I was called, and when I accept the calling, life got easy. Life was very challenging and difficult in the beginning because I didn't want to do the work. And when you don't do what you're called to do, you suffer for it. And so the journey to now is beginning with myself, beginning with making remedies for myself as a family herbalist, working with my family, then extending it out to the community. Then others want to purchase from you. Others want to learn from you. And through that process, you then build into a business. And then you add other aspects of it. You add other plants to it. And that's how I end up in the cannabis space.
So y'all, what she's trying to tell you is that when you're called to something, it goes beyond just saying this is what I'm going to do. When it calls you from a spirit base, that's how I feel about M for MM and what I'm doing. Because I never would have dreamed in a million years. You couldn't have said, Roz, I'll give you $1 million if you can guess, just you got 10 guesses or what have you. I would have went all over the place. So I understand when you talk about your calling. Danielle, this is a great segue. Talk about your calling. Give us a background of who is Danielle and how did Rich Soil Communication come into existence?
Absolutely. So I love what Therese said about when we don't run from our calling, when we accept it, that our lives get easier, right? So for me, I am a writer. Yes, that's it, Cam. When you don't do what you're called to do, you suffer for it. And so for me, I was called to write. Writing saved my life a number of times. And so I have been writing for as long as I can remember, journaling, writing all of the stuff in the background, all of that. And for me, I've been running a communications agency for several years now. And one of my good friends reached out to me, Sean Tolliver over at C-Tracks. He reached out and he said, Danielle, I really need some help with this communication stuff. And you know, what's it going to take? And I'm like, all right, I'm there, whatever. I got the skills. Let's do it. Let's make magic. And I stayed in the background supporting them for a couple of years. And he and Kaya and Michael were like, yo, you need to get on this. You got to support the industry. Other people in the industry need you. And I was like, yeah, you know. I'm writing my little books and bios and stuff for people on my regular side. And then they kept saying it and kept saying it. So last year, the pandemic hit, and I'm like, all right, well, you know, everybody's not writing books like they used to. Some people are, you know, what's new? What's something that I can explore? It's a good time. Everybody's at home. Let's check it out. And so I launched Rich Soil Communications because I recognized that there was a need for professional communications in the industry, especially as it continues to grow. I know how many people just automatically see the word marijuana and they be like, stoners, not doing shit, stuff, excuse me.
Yeah,
not doing stuff.
That's all right. We let a few bombs come in every now and then. Go on, girl.
Yes, don't let all my bombs come in. But I really wanted to really be a support and make sure that we can say what we need to say in a way that makes sense to others, to help us present our cases, our experiences, our knowledge in a professional way that challenges the narratives and the stereotypes that say that marijuana is something that it's not.
Yeah. And especially in the cannabis and the hemp industry where you have so many different barriers to be able to tell your story. So you can't advertise, you can't market like you normally would do with any other industry. So talk about from that perspective, what you've learned, even in your initial, let's say 12 months in, the different avenues to broadcast and to, to put people's stories or their brands out there so people can be able to, absorb it.
Yeah, so I think that the best way, the fastest way is always going to be word of mouth because there are so many limitations and restrictions. I look at setting up advertising and paid things on like Facebook and Instagram and on social media. And the truth of the matter is their bots are not as intelligent as they would like for them to be. And so we find ourselves kind of combating and getting accounts shut down just for a picture, getting accounts shut down for a word. I know for me, I made the mistake of putting cannabis in the title of one of my products, which is a done for you cannabis social media guide, right? And it was like done for you cannabis social media guide. It was a PDF and PayPal shut me down. Okay. Like in the first, I was like, oh my gosh, what are you saying? And then they kept all my money. And I was like, well, I bet that'll never happen to me again. And I bet I won't happen to anyone else that I have the opportunity to connect with. We all talk about semantics all the time. It's not necessarily what you say, is how you say it. And I'm in that space of figuring out how to say it. How can we say that this is plant medicine? How can we say that this plant-based experience is something that is healing? How can we say, you know what, hemp is part of the currency of this nation at this point?
Yes.
How can we tell the story, the history of it, and then also bring it to the future of it? So yeah, I was looking at PayPal.
It was beautiful, man. So everybody that's joining us right now, make sure you're sharing. We have our two awesome guests. We have Therese Prentice and Danielle Butler, really just talking about again, these are women who are driving the cannabis conversation. E, you know both these ladies, so let me just tell you, first and foremost, I just love my brother E because he is the plug. If you guys want to know how to get plugged into something, the plug, Eric Range, he is the plug. So mind you, he not only plugged us into Therese, but plugged us into Danielle. Tell me, E, from your perspective, when you connected with these two ladies, what was the impact of their separate work that's totally different, but yet there's some connection there that really, I guess, you brought them into your circle and then brought them into my circle. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. There you go.
No, he's back.
You're on mute again. You're on mute again. You're on mute. E. Okay, there you go.
All right.
Yeah. Now start over.
I'm having all kind of internet issues, technical issues over here, so I apologize.
The devil's busy. Hey, listen.
To answer the question, man. Yeah, for real. Listen, I have time again. I wholeheartedly believe that we are in the age of the Black female right now. I really do. I believe that to my core. And again, as I come across people in this industry, I meet more Black females in cannabis space than I meet anybody else. I kid y'all not. We're starting businesses who are doing great things in this space. And so when I connect with them, I'm like, man, these people are golden. Like, let me see how we can help other people. Like you said, Danielle has been a blessing to my business already. And so, to my circle, and you guys know I have my chairman's club already. And then Therese, we ain't even begun to talk about listen, she got a class coming up in a couple of weeks that, me and my wife are going to be participating in. We are also on our journey of getting closer to the plants. So for me, it sometimes it begins with a need that I have that is being met by somebody, and both these women feel that way. And then as I see how they operate in business, fellas, I don't know what to say, but we better get our stuff together. You know what I mean? Like,
we gotta get our stuff together. So Therese, tell me because we this is Canna Talk, so we talk about cannabis. And when did you fall in love with the cannabis and hemp plant? And tell people.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Can you just walk us through that journey, because you are that it is a part of who you are, but we want to know about this plant in particular and why the different uses of it, and why again, it seems like to me it's the cornerstone of everything that you talk about as well. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm fairly new to the market. I mean, very, very new. I joined Clubhouse on November 22nd. My journey began in December of 2020. So I knew about the plant and the spiritual components of the plant, but I was definitely trapped in the stigma of the plant, right? Facts. My husband, when I started talking about cannabis, he just his head spun around a few times, right? Because he just like, my wife, what? Like, I'm confused. But as I was educated, right? I educated about the plant on a whole different level. I embraced it. I sat in rooms. I sat at the feet of Roz and Eric and so many others where I just absorbed for hours at a time taking notes. But the most important thing that I did was I integrated into what I was already doing, and I integrated the knowledge and took action to implement what I saw was necessary in the marketplace. And so what I see is necessary is we need to integrate this plant because it goes back 5,000 years. And that, documentation beats conversation all day long. And the documentation is there to sustain, to, kind of legitimize the fact that, there's information that we just don't have the correct information.
Yep.
So fast forward from there, I started to incorporate the CBD flower that is available in my state, which is Florida. And I started to go in my lab, experiment with it. I can speak to it because I know, right? I know because I've worked with the plant. The plant has very high spiritual. It's like we call it the king plant, the superior plant, because it actually has heavy on the spiritual side and heavy on the medicinal side. And so we started using it. I started using, making relationships with farmers. I now have like 4 farmers that I work with. I've integrated into my community. My community, we now as a collective, we are integrating CBD. I teach about CBD. I teach about the endocannabinoid system and the importance. And this is how I tee it all up. You have a system in your body. Imagine if you didn't drink water, you're 30 years old and you didn't drink water for 30 years, what state your body would be in. Well, now you are discovering you have an endocannabinoid system in your body that has had no support, no nourishment, no acknowledgement in the whole 30 years you've been here. And so now we need to catch up and we need to fortify and we need to nourish that endocannabinoid system and recognize that it's there and recognize that maybe, just maybe, some of the challenges that you're going through in your life is because you have ignored the endocannabinoid system, and we need to move back around and include it as part of our wellness. And so we are doing that going forward. So I'm teaching, I'm now being certified to teach, and all of that fast forward in 90 days after meeting all of you.
Man, you know what?
Hey, Therese, I have a question for you.
That's crazy.
So I have a question for you right? And just the story of you know, us as a people and our connection to plants. We've lost that connection with other herbs and so on. You know, what is it about you know, the journey back to that connection?
Oh my God.
You touch on in your classes and so on, because for me, when I started my company, it was about, you know, reconnect. In fact, in our mission I state that I believe is the plant, which is farming, which is, you know, just connection to plants. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So when we think of herbalism, we have to go back to why were the people of color or Black people brought to this country? They were brought to this country because our ancestry speaks to our connection to nature. So if we, on the most simplest form, our ancestry is about our connection to nature. We were brought to this country because of our connection to nature and the ability to know how to build the foundation of an economy, right? And so our ancestors were in the fields and they just knew. They didn't go to a certification. They didn't have anyone guiding them. They knew. They were in the land. They had a deep connection to the earth. They had a deep connection to the plants. And from that space, all of that information was stolen. And so that information was stolen and then repackaged and being sold to us in the form of a certification, which then ultimately has our people saying that I'm not confident because I don't have a certification. It's like having your grandmother's stuff stolen and then at the local market, they're selling it back to their grandchildren as if it wasn't their grandmother's, right? So right. They should be able to get what was stolen for them for free, but instead they've taken away their confidence because they make them feel less than, like they don't know. So what I do is I help people tap into their lineage. I give them a framework so that they're able to move forward. And then they don't need to have anyone outside of themselves tell them or validate for them what they know, because they already know. They just needed a framework to place that knowledge within and have a method so that if somebody questions them, they have a way to come back and point to the references. So I teach them how to move in that space. And so when people come in, whether aspiring, whether master, they come in with a lack of confidence. And when they walk out, they say, I got confidence. I know what to do. And they go out and they do it.
And they go out and do it. Man, oh man. And the connection to Danielle, as you are a storyteller, because from our lineage and our history and generation and generation, it was all about telling these stories and passing it down. And I want you both to come.
I want to jump in on that one right there. Because the story, because it's going to go right back to Danielle. When people come in my rooms, right, on Clubhouse or anywhere, they ask you, I got this, what can I do for that? We don't do any of that because that's not the methodology that an herbalist operates from, right? We operate from what's your story? If you tell me your story, then within the confines of that story, I want to know what happened prior to you having this manifestation of whatever the name is of the trademark that we don't want to talk about or need to use. I want to know what the story is, because in the confines of the story, there's a piece called metaphysical that no one addresses. And typically that is the root of what is going on with you that no one has ever addressed. And that's what the herbalist is going to sit with your story and help you unravel so we can deal with the metaphysical part of who you are. And then the manifestation will maybe be very different.
I think we just need to pass the collection plate now. We
and keep that. Hey, listen.
No, y'all didn't start me. Y'all I was trying to be quiet, but you went to my
you know what? And so shout out to Takesia Randall in Oregon, our family, our Oregon State Director. Shout out to Kit Grimes, our COO. Kit was like, and did you just learn this? Just get going a couple of months ago?
90 days. 90 days. That's what the plants will do. When you ingest the plants, you take on the DNA of the plants. And because I ingest the CBD plants, I get to know. I get to tap that superior level of energy and knowledge. And so I pass that on to my people because I'm all for my people.
Yes.
All day long.
So Danielle, as I was transitioning, you telling the stories that you tell, I think E has been such a great supporter of this. And we need individuals like yourself that can take being able to tell Teresa's story, my story, Kit's story, or what have you. What are the things that you need to be telling folks right now in order to get us out of this box that we feel so scared to tell our story and the power of it? Because sometimes we feel like we got to write it and we don't. We have individuals like yourself. I mean, because I'm case in point. There's so many easy tools out right now to be able to capture where we are. We have to memorialize this point, this time in history, correct?
Yes.
Go for it. Yeah.
So here we go. Just like Therese said, when they brought us over from the motherland, one of the things that they did was first take our language so that we couldn't communicate. But what we found is that we were able to still tell our stories. We were still able to share the knowledge through cornrow braiding. We were able to put together the path. This is how you get out. This is where you go. This is a message that I need your body to take to someone else so that when they see this pattern on your head or they see these markings on your arms and on your face, that they know exactly what I meant to say, right? And so I look at it from the perspective that storytelling is our lineage. Storytelling is something that we as a people own because it's the only thing that we can own. It was the only thing that we were left with. They took us away from home. They took the language away. They took our resources away from us and put us in a foreign place. But the only thing that we had left was the stories from back home, the stories from our experiences to be able to share them. One of the things that I tell my kids all the time is, hey, tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell it and they're going to get the details wrong.
Yes.
And that's trash. Like, if I can be frank about it, if someone else is telling you a story and they're telling the story wrong, it's trash. Case in point, I want to piggyback or circle back to that question about, right, our plant story, our moment of knowledge and intersection with the plant. So the story that I had been told as a Christian in America was the law says that cannabis is bad.
Yes.
The law says cannabis is the devil's medicine. The law says that cannabis is the gateway drug. But really, the law was written from someone's story. The story was, hey, white women are going to be taken a plunder by black men on the cannabis plant. That was the story. That's the law, right? And so then when I look at that and how it's been perpetuated, I'm like, okay, yeah, cannabis is bad because I love Jesus, because cannabis is bad because I love Jesus. But in 2014, my husband, I tell him, I say, hey, babe, I got a headache. I'm going to lay down for a minute. Pass me the Tylenol. He passes me the Tylenol, but before he can get it in my hand, my body goes into convulsions, right? I have something like 6 seizures back to back in a matter of seconds. Called the EMS. EMS is like, oh my gosh, we got to get her to the hospital. Most people that have this don't survive. We go, I wake up in ICU 3 days later. The doctors are like, man, they asked me like Therese, kind of, what's your history? What's your story? What's going on? And I'm like, listen, I'm just a mom of a toddler out here trying to make life work. They send me home 22 pills. Who got time to be taking 22 pills? Not me. I had lost my speech. That was the first thing.
That's a full-time job in and of itself.
That's a full-time job trying to take 22 pills. It's only 24 hours in a day. Yeah. But the first thing that left me was my speech after the seizures. I couldn't speak properly. I couldn't get my thoughts together. And then my mobilization left. I wasn't able to walk properly. So now here I am, immobile and unable to communicate. Reached out to a friend, a herbalist, and I'm like, listen, this ain't the move for me. I got a 2-year-old running around here. What we gonna do? And he said, hey, your endocannabinoid system needs some work. Here you go.
Yeah.
And my life changed. Like 22 pills for several weeks on end, multiple seizures taking place. And then suddenly I'm introduced to a plant that puts my body back to homeostasis. I know there is a God.
Right.
An amazing plant, right?
Well, have you gone in and did your own story? Because I mean that's powerful in regards to, but just being able to, from a I think from a health and wellness perspective, we have to talk about this plant and get the culture kind of like, I just want to get high. That type of vernacular really changed the conversation. So I mean, you have your own beautiful story that you can tell.
I mean, I have not told that story to many. I'm telling it more now. But I even think about what Therese said when we talk about like, oh, I just want to get high. But what is it that you're avoiding, right? Or what is it that you're fixing? Not necessarily avoiding, but what is it that you're talking to when you say, hey, I just want to go get high. Okay, for why?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
what is it that's driving that? And I think that the more that we do tell our stories, the more that we share it. I talked to a mom yesterday that I met on Eric's call earlier this week, and she's like, listen, I'm treating my baby who doctors said I need to terminate my pregnancy. Like, what? But your baby has been sustaining life for years now with a
Right.
plant, with the support of a plant. So how dare we remove that resource? How dare we remove something that has the ability to heal us, to change us? I come from a background where my grandmother, my aunt, and my mother all were diagnosed with breast cancer at 40. You think I'm not thinking about how cannabis could have changed the narrative in that perspective,
Same
right?
thing.
If we had been, a little bit more educated, what would the difference have been? Would we have said, I love Jesus, but I can't take cannabis, even though cannabis is quite possibly something that can change the way our cells are mutated in our bodies? Psh, get out of here.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I love it.
What's really amazing that I picked up in that in both stories as well is the innovative way that we story.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about sitting down and messages being weaved into cornrows, you know what I mean? You think about the slaves and which is a martial arts style that was, secret, it was done in secret as a dance in order to practice and to sharpen skills.
Yes.
But we have always innovative ways to tell our story. And I think now is a time where we need to reclaim that, sense of innovation in the way that we out because again, it drives so much of the narrative, even when we're not the ones who are driving our stories ourselves.
Yeah, I love it. Therese, so as you look at where you are right now, do you teach classes or what do you do in order to take the knowledge you have and be able to transfer that over to the folks that, we are just dumb to the plants and the viability in our life. And especially I want to hear from this because I have a son who has sickle cell. And with sickle cell, it's a genetic disorder that affects your red blood cells. And I really believe in chlorophyll has a similarity to red blood cell and chlorophyll you find in plants. So I've been having this conversation and I really probably need to be veering him towards you, but not only from cannabis, which he is a card. He's 22 and has his card. So anybody that needs your card, get your card. And he's proudly a card holder and gets his medicine. But I would love to understand more about where you see the outreach, the education. What do you have that's available for us to up our game and up our understanding?
Well, if you're on Clubhouse, I'm always in Clubhouse talking. So that's one place, right? And so the other one is Herbalism in a Weekend, and it's herbalisminAweekend.com. So Herbalism in a Weekend is my signature program. And that program has turned into, it's gone beyond me, right? Like I had a conversation yesterday and these ladies they're talking about buying land and I need to be on the land and I can't even go there. Like it's turned into something more than I ever imagined. But Herbalism in a Weekend.
Is that it? Herbalism in a Weekend, right? .com?
Yes.
There you go.
So Herbalism in a Weekend is not about so much what we have to understand. It's not about learning 5,000 plants. I've been to those programs. I've been to those schools. It's not that. Yes, we're going to talk about a couple of herbs, but what I really want to instill in people is your relationship with the plants. It's your relationship. Just like we always talk about, I come out of a church in New York under Dr. A.R. Bernard, who is from CCC, right? And one of the things that he talks about is your relationship with God, not your relationship with the congregation, and then you go through somebody else, because I was raised a Catholic, right? And so it's your relationship with the plants. So I can never tell you what plant is going to be called to you. Those plants that you see in the store, those plants that say, hey, buy me, they keep coming up in your life. Those are the plants that are for you. Those plants that grow around where you live are the medicine for the people that live in that community, right? So what I teach about is acute awareness. And in the space of acute awareness, you will begin to know what's there for you. So in the case of your son, yes, of course, chlorophyll will be great for him. It's one of the things that's the closest to the blood in our running through our bodies. But then also a key indication that is needed by someone that has sickle cell is more oxygen in the body. So going outside, eating greens, and getting the chlorophyll in, because if you just go and get some chlorophyll and drink it, you will be energized. Right? Energized. Why? Because there's more oxygen going through your body.
Yeah.
The relationship part. So when we develop that relationship with the plants, then what happens is we start raising our vibration. When we raise our vibration, we now draw more opportunities into our life, more knowledge. That knowledge goes into our DNA. We then start attracting more opportunities. We start attracting more situations that we want to call into our life. So that's why I can't do that. Now, the next piece of this is I tie in the elements. The elements, we have 5 elements: the ether, the fire, the water, the earth. I bring that all into perspective and I show you how it shows up in life. How it shows up in life, but then how it shows up in the dis-ease within your body. And then we turn around and we bring in the numbers, universal sacred numbers and universal laws into this equation. And when you done, then I show you how to formulate and all that, and everybody, you good. You good. You can go in your kitchen and make blends with confidence. You can go in and make blends and remedies for your family with confidence. I tell you what, the ladies and gentlemen that have gone through herbalism in a weekend with me, I'll tell you what, they don't question themselves. They got confidence now. They may not have had it before. Lots of education.
Yeah.
Very little confidence. And so now we take all that education and their stories and all that. But the key piece that everyone always needs to remember, your story is your business, is your brand. Because when you tap into your story, you don't never have to go and borrow somebody else's something. You don't have to necessarily go to school. So that comes right back to Danielle, because you don't have to go to school because you done lived the story. You just have to keep telling the story.
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. If y'all don't pass the plate around right quick, because if she ain't put, that's the gospel of understanding.
I'll tell you, my wife is so geeked about being in Therez's class coming up that we have secured sitters for the weekend. The kids for the weekend. We gonna be focused in, because we're definitely, like, 2021 has been all in on our plant journey. Both from eating to herbs, everything. For me, I believe that's part of the key of success for us right now. You know what I mean? When I think about, it's just in 2021 so far, happened. It's been a mindset change that we've been going through, and at the same time, a lifestyle change. And when you start to, like they say, start walking closer to your path. I mean, you just literally, we have conversations at night and we talk about how God is literally showing out right now. I mean, showing out. They say, I'll never give you more than you can handle. But sometimes I'm like, you doing the most right now. I love it.
So Therez, your weekend, is it one full weekend? Is it 8 hours? Or does it go to a campus? Can you give up?
So let me just tell you this. I'm free for the weekend. And so people have said that they've come in Clubhouse and just told people, like, just clear your whole weekend. Like it's supposed to be from 11 to 3, but I've never left at 3. I think the latest we've been there is like 7 o'clock from 11 o'clock. Because I believe that people need to be heard. And
Yeah.
our whole space, I let everybody be heard. And I believe that that's kind of one of the key pieces is that allowing people to be heard, ask their questions, because I'm really passionate about people doing this work because
Yeah.
it's not what we think it is. We don't have to go to school. We can be just our own family herbalist. We can be a community herbalist. And then we can decide that we want to build a business around it. But there's space within this weekend for everyone. It's Saturday and Sunday. You're going to cry. You're going to laugh. I don't even take lunch. I just go through. Like, it's just, I was called to this work. It's not, I was called. And the more I do it, I don't even know how I do it sometimes. I don't even know what I say half the times, you know.
It just comes. It just comes out.
I just have learned to allow spirit to flow through me. And I know this for certain. If you hear my voice, if you're in my space, you've been called to whatever I got to say. And so I just, that's it. My husband is the reason I came to this. He kept telling me, but when COVID hit, I had a travel business and I had to close it. And I said, what am I going to do now? And he was like, you need to go ahead and do what you know you're supposed to be doing over there with them herbs. And I was like, okay, kicking and screaming. And we ended up here. And I see that I really want to connect with Danielle because on the back end of my weekend, I have a community. And that's really where the work is done. And I get to love on the community and they get to love on each other because I was raised by a village. I was raised by a village because my mom had cancer. And she had cancer from the time I was like 7 years old. And I was always in a place where I thought, mommy's going to die. But I knew that the neighbors we met when we came to this country, right? Those were our family. And whenever my mom got sick, we went to live with them. It wasn't about when the kids are coming. Don't make me come around the corner and get them kids to bring them to our house. That's what my Uncle Danny would say. And so being raised by a village, you know what it feels like to be in a village. I knew nothing else, but I was going to be, if mommy wasn't going to be here, I was going to be loved. I was going to be taken care of. And there was going to be a whole lot of people to love on me. So I grew up in that. I didn't just talk about it. You hear people talk about being raised by a village. I was raised by one. So I take that concept in everything that I do. And I was in network marketing. It's the last piece I want to share with you is that I was taught this one thing and it stayed with me. You treat your team or your community like family. You teach them how to treat each other and you don't let everybody talk to them. And I live by that and I treat my community that way. I treat them like family. I teach them how to treat each other, how to work together as a collective, how to do business with each other. And then I teach them and I don't let everybody talk to them. So everybody that comes to our community to speak and share, I vet them. I vet them very carefully because my reputation is on the line and I only want the best to speak to my community.
Well, the vibration you get from Danielle is true because I got it from her. It took, I said, I need to get something written up she wrote it up to me talking to her and I knew I had some opportunities going on and just the energy and the intentionality and the spirit that I feel it. I know it.
The energy here today is like so powerful.
It is.
Like, I want to talk to Danielle because she got to come talk to our community because we got to get these stories going.
Absolutely.
And listen, and I'm telling y'all, I've been slowly but surely my community as well, because Danielle and I met probably September, October of last year, and we began talking. And I'll tell you from the onset, what really drew me to Danielle was two things. One, her level of professionalism was just out of for me. I come across a lot of people And at this point in time, I was hiring somebody from my business to do something for my business. So I'm like, listen, either you're up here or you're not. Thing that really, really stuck with me, and to this day, it's been such a blessing for me, is her ability to hear even what's not being said. Her storytelling. So I'm curious, Danielle, have you ever noticed that you have that skill set of hearing things that are unsaid, and how do you bring that? And I tell y'all, I couldn't have done it without Danielle. I called Danielle when I was having a roadblock, a mental block. Danielle got me right in 3.5 minutes, y'all. Back on it, because she had whatever she said in those 3.5 minutes, it unlocked me and it got me back to where I was going. So Danielle, can you talk about how did you get to that point, and what you bring to the table with people?
So I think that it came from watching people. I'm a people watcher by nature. I love to watch people, and I'm fascinated by people's choices and their actions. And so there are a lot of things that you can learn by just watching someone. You learn how the cadence of a voice is. You listen in for what's not being said. You listen for where the pause is, right? Are you looking for a word that fits better? Are you looking for the politically correct way to say something? And so for me, it's a gift. It is honestly a God-given gift that I have to listen, because sometimes that's really what it is. People just need somebody to listen. They want to be heard, like Therese said. And I feel like, once we get to a place where we can share our story, sometimes that's all we need, is to get it out of our bodies, right? To get it out of our heads, and that gets out of the way. And so for me, I spend a lot of time not just listening to what's being said. I take a lot of notes, a ton of notes. I mean, they may or may not make sense, but then I also spend time to say, okay, now when I'm looking at these notes, what are the things that are missing? What wasn't said? What was avoided? Because sometimes you can tell when someone is avoiding something, or when did the conversation shift? Okay, when we peel this layer back, things started to get a little tight in our conversation, which means there's a there that we need to go back and explore and dig a little bit deeper. Or when you said this, I was looking in your eyes, or I heard like a little quiver in your voice, and realized, we need to spend a little bit more time on that. That's a soft space. That's a hurt space. That's a passionate space. That is a private space. And then kind of working from there to say, all right, this is the story, right? One of the things that I help people do is figure out how to tell the story without being overwhelming to others. Because sometimes we just get mouth vomit. We have so much that's happening, and we're like, I got to tell everything. But really, do they need all of that, or could they just deal with a little belch, right? And so trying to figure out how to tell the story in a way that makes sense, not just in our own heads, because we've lived our experiences and we've replayed them over and over again. So we framed it certain ways for how we share it, but those aren't necessarily all the ways that other people receive them. I think someone I saw post yesterday, maybe Cam, I think she's on here. Cam posted something like, the story that you keep telling yourself doesn't make it true. Just because you keep telling it to yourself, you keep repeating it, it does not make it true. And so I help people get to the truth of their story, because that's the part that needs to be shared. That's the part that needs to be told. I ask questions like, if you only have 3 to 5 things that you can tell me, what are those 3 to 5 things? I don't want to hear nothing else. Don't give me 6. Don't give me 7. You got 3, 4, or 5. Everything else.
Games with that either, boy. She'll play no games.
I don't want to hear it. I don't have time to hear it.
Listen, that's awesome. Danielle with a whole list of things. If you had 3 things you could tell them, what are those 3 things?
That's it. People remember things in lists. They remember things in chunks. So if you try to give them too much, they're not going to learn.
Yes.
That's true. That is true. That's facts.
And then she wouldn't allow for like excuses. Like I was like, I got time to sit down and write and this and that. And she was like, okay, listen, I'm sending you a link to this thing called Otter. You're just gonna turn on the mic and talk. And that's it. It gave me such a breakthrough and being able to just, sit down, and while I was just sitting down having a beer and just talking into the mic, and then that began to go and edit and so on and so. But she made it such an easy thing to where, you heard me say earlier on Can I Talk, Roz, on another write books. It's because Danielle has made the process so simple for me to where I'm like, more of us need to be telling our stories. More of us need to be Roz, haven't I come to you?
Yeah.
The same thing. Like, Roz, when we going to write
time.
this book,
It's coming. It's in my belly. It's in my belly. It's in my belly. It's in my belly.
It's story, Roz.
It's in my belly. So Danielle, how do people find, what's your website? How do people find you in regards to, because again, you guys are out there. If you have sometimes we don't even know we have a story. I think we all do. But if you want someone that can professionally be able to walk you through that process, we want to make sure you have Danielle's information to be able to reach out. Yes, exactly. Go for it, Danielle. You got it.
For your cannabis stories, I am at richsoilcommunications.com.
Is that a soil plural or soil?
Soil, just one type of soil. We just need one set of good soil, and we can make it work from there. We don't need all the 50 million soils. We need one rich, fertilized.
Yes.
Ready to go.
Yes.
And hard and soft and
all of that, nice and ready to go. And so, so can you talk about and then your next, this new phase, this new opportunity that came your way that allows you to parlay what you've been doing about telling stories, but now you are doing something a little bit different, but so special in the same vein.
Okay. So I am fascinated, as I've shared with you before, about people's stories and people's experiences. I believe that when we own them, we can grow from them. When we own them, we can learn from them. When we share them, we are able to help someone else. We're able to support someone else. I have been writing memoirs for about 5 years now for other people and helping them shape and share their stories to the masses. And I had a couple of authors that I've worked with recently. One, we wrote a book called The Scenic Route to Purpose, and it was a young woman who she was single, made some interesting life choices, found herself incarcerated a few different times, and kind of what her experience was like within the system. What is her experience now that she's on the outside, on the backside of things? And her story really touched me because I realized how many people that this story wasn't unique, right? It was unique in how it happened to her, but not unique within our community. And so I wrote that story with her, and it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was also heartbreaking, right? It was bittersweet. And then I had another young man who reached out to me. He wanted to do a program called Books and Breakfast. Turns out that he had faced several charges, and had gotten convicted of several, and then ended up spending time in the federal pen. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, we're going to tell this story. And so we've been working on that story for the past couple of years. God willing, and the creek doesn't rise, that book will hit the shelves in May. And what I found again in his story was that in our communities, stories of incarceration are much more prevalent. Stories of arrest are much more prevalent than they are in other communities. I could go into the stats and all of that good stuff. But we know it. We've seen it. We watch it happen on the news day to day. And I got this call. So funny story. I haven't told this story to Raj yet, but back in February, I reached out to Eric and I said, I'm going to pitch Raj, from Q2, 3, and 4. At some point, I'm going to pitch Roz. I'm going to write for M for MM and for Roz some way, somehow. Try to get on the calendar 11 times, and it never worked, right? Roz calls me a few weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, good morning, not knowing who it is. She's like, hey, sweetheart, it's Roz. Look, let me get my notebook together. This might be it. This is the time for my pitch. Where are my notes? Get my notes, because I wrote it out. I shared it with Eric, I get my notes because this is it. I got her on the phone. I'm about to pitch. And Roz pitched me, y'all.
I did. I was like, listen.
Oh man, that's good.
And so the opportunity was, I'm not even gonna lie, irresistible, because everybody's stories deserve to be told. Everybody's stories have some unique factors, but they also have common threads. So with Project Clean Slate, there's an opportunity that is arising as cannabis is becoming legalized across the nation. There are a lot of people that are benefiting from the plant being legal, but there are also a lot of people whose lives, families, and communities have been completely transformed, devastated, decimated, and broken down. Also through the plant not being legalized. So on one hand, we have these wonderful stories. Oh my gosh, it's about to be legal. Pop off. Everybody get a license. We about to do this. But what about those people that either are still incarcerated or those people who have served time and have these convictions on their records and they're unable to access some of the things that some of us take for granted?
Sure.
What about those people? And my goal, my sole objective is to humanize the experience, because for so long, the experience has been demonized. For so long, the stories that have been told, all we hear is convicted felon. That's all we hear. But that convicted felon is a human. That convicted felon is part of someone's family, is part of someone's neighborhood, is part of someone's community. And with Project Clean Slate, we have individuals that are going to benefit from having their records expunged. Oh my gosh, and get a fresh start. But a fresh start doesn't have to start from the very beginning. A fresh start can start from where they are, what they know, what they have experienced. And I feel like the more we tell their stories, the more we shout to the media that this is what M4MM is doing, this is what expungement has the possibility to do. I believe that communities and families will be restored.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
that honor will be restored back to these men and women who have been devastated, who have been shamed, who have been outcast. I believe that telling their stories, that bringing the community together to be a part of their redemption. I'm not going to get emotional with y'all. I'm not
Yeah.
going to get emotional on
You
this.
know,
But
But it's so real. So real. Go
right.
go
But
in.
and this is why I love Daniel for this role, because again, I think it's more and for MM, we've been doing experiments, we're gonna keep doing those. You know what I mean? That's the work. That's what we're about, right? But social equity has become such this buzzword, clickbait word, and it's time we put some respect on it, right? And I think the way you do that is by telling the real stories of real lived experiences that people have gone through. I think it's time we expose even more the stories of what happened when somebody's on the inside, because we put a lot of focus on when people are in jail and that story of reintegrating into society, as we should. But we are. I mean, the people. When you talk about just stories that are so unheard and buried, we saw uproar during the Trump administration on what they were doing with young children at the border, right? But we never told the story about what they're doing to our black. You know what I mean? We don't tell that story. And I think as we get deeper into, having you in this role, continuing the work that we're doing with expungement and now stories, we can bring some of that to the light. And again, like I said, put some respect on this whole social equity conversation, because this ain't just about checking a box. This it is real.
This is somebody's life.
Yeah,
This is
real.
There is a social worker that I partner with here in Atlanta. Her name is Sonia Cruel, and she's a client of mine. And I produce a show for her, much like this. It's called Let's Talk Transition. And back in December, we did a show called Home for the Holidays, Life After Lockup, right? And although we were supposed to be focusing on the stories of the individuals that she was interviewing, one of the things that we ended up spending a significant portion of time speaking about was that lived experience inside the prison, right? When you are arrested for a $5 joint, right? The trauma, the inhumane treatment, the experience behind those walls is unfathomable. What we see on TV, you know, the person's hanging over the bar like, hey, any mail for me today? That's not America's prison system. Like that's not it. That's not how it's working. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that. And I think that once we recognize that our prison system was created as an extended means of slavery, which is another
The old
conversation.
conversation. Yes.
Oh,
We have those conversations and, like Therese said, get to the root of some things, then we can begin to do some real work. We can begin to really turn this industry upside down and make
Yeah.
some huge strides in terms of how we build our villages and our communities.
Therese, are there any future projects you'll be working on, you know, outside of the herbalism weekend? Anything that you want to share with everyone that you're thinking about or looking to work on?
oh yeah, I have a couple of businesses that I'm actually working with Tamika Range. She's my attorney, and so we got a lot of things we're working on. We're getting ready to launch a
Her
business.
happy husband down there.
I know, yeah. You know, I keep everything in the family, so
It's an ecosystem. It's an
that's
ecosystem.
right. That's
Ecosystem.
right. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah, we do. We have a business. We have a CBD brand. We're getting ready to launch. We're just waiting on. You know, I have to. Oh, I have to listen to my attorney, so I have to wait for her to let me know that I can. It's a go. But we are actually building a whole generational wealth structure. So I had to restructure my businesses for that, and so it's taking a little bit longer. But I'm patient because, you know, I want to make sure that I build it correctly so that it can last at least 100 years after my demise. And so we're restructuring those businesses so that we can do that and then move forward. But we do have a lifestyle brand that we are going to be launching in the CBD, hemp, and cannabis space, and then some products that go along with it. And so I'm just developing my relationships. I believe that relationships are the pivotal part of any enterprise, any ecosystem. So I'm building all of my relationships with farmers. I have several farmers that I work with. I have, you know, my attorney. I have all of you. I'm a member of M4MM, looking to get more involved in that arena. And, you know, looking for some land now that my tribe has told me that I need some land. And most importantly, I travel a lot, and I really want to take more people outside of the United States. We're on this this journey to understand and the connection between all of us and this country, but more importantly, understand the culture outside of here. Because when you do that, you begin to understand that everything is not based on what you learn in America.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, because man, we are always on fire, and today was like, this is the best way to end Women's History Month. I'm so appreciative of you guys taking time to come spend some time and talk to us and talk to the audience. These folks that shout out to the Cannabis and everyone that's on with us today and that you're sharing. And Mariella wants you to come to Puerto Rico. So she and Kit are going to be down there for 420 week. And it's incredible. But I want to put you on the spot. And I got this idea from my good friend, Stanley Atkins, who I love to death. Hey, Stanley, put you on the spot. You got 30 seconds. We talk about stories or just books. I wanted you to give a book recommendation that has made a impression or that you recommend for folks to maybe check out. And I'll start it by saying this because I'm always in a business mode, but it really changed my perspective about what am I doing with my time. The 4-Hour Work Week. If you guys have never read that before, from a business perspective, the number 4-hour work week. That brother, Tim Ferriss, changed my routine.
You can listen
my
to it on
mind.
YouTube.
Yes. He changed my understanding of working for yourself or working for someone else. And I just want to tell all my Canna Closet folks that have a business in your belly and you ready to come out, come on out the closet, figure it out. We step on out there in faith. You know who I'm talking to. You could do it because it's your time. All right, E, what's your book recommendation?
My book recommendation, people trying to start a business. This is the first book I started reading.
Either one.
I'm saying, again, my mind has been focused on not working in my business, but working on my business this year. And one of the books that's really helped me with is a book called Traction. It's a book called Traction, and it really breaks down, basically what functions or, key functions of any business are, and then, developing your processes under those and really helping you to see where it is that you're going to identify problems, how to address those problems. So that would be my recommendation for anybody, book called Traction.
Hey, I got Kit over here. My Kit's in the office with me today. She talking about he better be talking about his book. Is
that too? You're
okay.
That's what we need to be talking about.
They getting you, Barry. They gonna get you.
That Grow is an absolute number one book. Right after you read My Daughter Skipped the Line to Be with God by Tamika Range as well. We just write books over here, y'all. So.
Yeah. Hey, Danielle, book recommendation, 30 seconds.
Book recommendation, 30 seconds, is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. It is fiction. It is real. Although it is fiction, it is the story of so many of us. It explores a wrongful conviction and the impact on a family.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And Therese, your recommendation.
My recommendation, so that people can connect to their culture, would be Working the Roots. Working the Roots, 400 years of African-American culture and herbalism, really. And it's by Michelle Lee. And that I would work in the roots, because it's going to help you connect some of the dots on your journey as an African American, and definitely back to various parts of the world and the continent.
Wow.
We just need like a book club page or something, you know?
Exactly. Well, we need to start that. I need to figure out how to put that together to do a book club that allows us to be able to share these gems with one another, because it's critical. So guys, thank you so much for being on. I mean, it's been incredible today. The resources that you shared, your spirit that you shared, your information that you shared. You guys, let's make sure we pop it up. E, you want to get ready to sign us off for today? We got, hold on one second. Here we go, richsoilcommunication.com. You guys got it? And then, of course, herbalisminAweekend.com. So make sure you reach out to these sisters. And thank you, ladies, so much for being on Cannabis Talk with Roz today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome. E, take us home, brother. Take us home.
I mean, Fire Fridays, they better call the firemen, because I'm telling you, we're burning. We're blazing over here. It already goes out to my two guests. I just admire these women so much, just on a personal level. I'm so glad that I'm personally tapped into them. My wife is tapped into them. So you guys are here sharing your awesomeness, your woman power. I love it, because I think you guys are going to inspire more women to step into their greatness. So thank you guys for being here. As usual, to all of our guests who are watching on Facebook, man, we couldn't do this without y'all. Y'all really and truly are the backbone with Roz. Thank y'all for showing up every week. Thank you for sharing this with other people. And we'll see y'all again, man, next week. But y'all, my message every week: go home, love on yourself, love your family, get some rest, because we got work to do Monday morning. And we'll see y'all right back here next week on another episode of Cannabis Talk with Roz.